Are you looking for the perfect bracelet for a loved one? Would your man be interested in a personalized keyring from his children? Are you looking for the best priced jewelry, whether it be a necklace, ring, earrings, bangle, or even more? Look no further than Crafted Arts. Crafted Arts is a local business based in Barry within the Vale of Glamorgan, and they have a range of all the perfect items you need. If it's for the perfect gift for an anniversary, or maybe it's for someone's birthday, maybe something for Christmas, or you wanted to give someone that perfect gift that will last a long time, Crafted Arts is the business for you. If you want to know more or see what they have in stock, then you can visit them locally at 29 High Street, Barry, Vale of Glamorgan, CF627EB, or you can go onto their website at www.craftedarts.co.uk. You could even email them at info@craftedarts.co.uk, or maybe just give them a call at 07789 94248. Trust me, it's worth it for the perfect gift. The best thing about Creative Space is that we don't just want to encourage people in being creative in TV, film, or even theatre. We also want you to be creative in a variety of other things as well. So do you want to have experience in making jewelry? Do you want to pick up a hobby but do not know what to take or where to start? Then look no further than the Vale Jewelry Workshops. Vale Jewelry Workshops provides the best experience in teaching you how to make the best sterling silver jewelry. They will help you make a range of silverware including rings, bracelets, and many more pieces. You will learn the basic silversmith skills such as soldering, texturing, shaping, and lots more. Not only do the workshops provide the experience for adults, it also provides the best experience and fun for children as well. So if you want to learn on how to make sterling silver jewelry, and if you're very interested, go onto their website at www.valegewelryworkshops.co.uk or get in touch with them via email at info@valegewelryworkshops.co.uk or even phone them at 07789 794248. Hey guys, how's it going? Reece Steens here on Creative Space Podcast, and I have a brand new episode for you right now, and it involves my guest today, Charles Fox. Charles is a two-time Academy Award nominated film composer. He has done many films and TV shows, and he has also been the creator of many themes as well, including Happy Days and The Love Boat. Also, he talks about Dolly Parton, he talks about Chevy Chase, he talks about loads and loads of people, and it's just a pleasure to actually speak to him and talk about the history that he's had with people, especially with someone like Quincy Jones, who recently passed away, which was sad. We lost a music giant, but it was such a fun experience to chat with Charles because he was such a warm guy. I really enjoyed his company, whether it be on Zoom or not, but it was so fun, and it was so fun to talk about films and music and film and so much more. But without further ado, let's just get down to it. It's me and Charles Fox on Creative Space Podcast. All over the UK, all over America, we get a good following in America now. Soon as I started bringing some American guests on, that was it then. They were like, yep. And it's I just had to look on my Spotify, checking the graphs, and apart from the United Kingdom, obviously, America is the second top most followed people who follow the podcast. So I'm really blessed that people in America actually want to listen to my podcast.
Why not? Why not? Yeah. Anyway, I'm happy to be doing it with you.
Oh, thank you so much. No, do you know what? It's a real pleasure because, of course, you've written so many songs and you've accomplished so many things that I wish to one day, as a writer and a playwright and myself, would wish to achieve in the future. I bet you sit back and just think, all in a day's work now. Just have a nice cup of coffee or whatever drink that you prefer, and just go, yeah, it's not too bad. Oh, there he goes. He's taking a sip now.
Absolutely. Coffee's always at hand. Yeah.
But I just wanted to ask you, straight off the cuff, when you look back, I mean, I normally ask this question is, how do you look back on your career? But I'm going to say that to the very end. But do you sometimes sit down, reminisce about your career and just go, what happened?
I I often think about that, I came from the Bronx,
Mm,
and my family wasn't into music or show business or anything like that. But they were behind me with my dreams, you know.
mm,
And so I started as a young boy playing the piano, and along the way decided I want to go to this high school of music and art, which is a very celebrated school. And then of course there I met a lot of young, wonderful musicians, jazz, classical, all kinds of people. And this flame started building inside of me. And I must say it keeps building many years later. My my good fortune really was in looking back at studying with Nadia Boulanger. After high school, I went to Paris, and I went there to a conservatory in the Palace of Fontainebleau to study with Nadia Boulanger. She was the director. She had been the teacher of Aaron Copland 40 years before me and taught generations of people. She's the most celebrated composition teacher of the whole 20th century. And her background, her teacher was Fauré, and her classmate was Ravel, and her best friend was Stravinsky. So, you know, I was one shoulder away from knowing those people, and she inspired me. She gave me a life in music. I spent 2 years there in Paris, and when I look back, that's mostly what I look back on. How fortunate I was to have got to know and worked with Nadia Boulanger. I carry it with me to this day. We
mm,
just lost Quincy Jones, as I'm sure you know, and
mm.
Quincy studied with her. And whenever I get together with Quincy, we always talked about our beloved teacher. He loved her as I did. And I know a lot of students of hers. So it's just very fortunate. And as I say, well, I don't usually look back early or late. I look back to the time that I got my opportunity to, first of all, widen my horizons, living in France, learning to speak French, and having friends in other countries, and it was a real growth for me, and so I carry that with me.
You mentioned Quincy Jones. I wanted to know firsthand, what was it like to be around Quincy? Because obviously some people are going to expect to hear from you like, "Oh, what aura is he?" Because he's a giant in the music world, and but you probably would, I guarantee, would probably answer, Quincy Jones is Quincy Jones. You know, what you see is what you get. I imagine.
Well, what you got with Quincy was first of all extraordinarily talented man,
Mm,
and if anyone's interested, read his autobiography called Q. He had a very difficult life to begin with, to start with, and he built this mountainous career and love from people, including me. We were friends, and he was a giant in everything that he did, from arranging, learning to play the trumpet. As 15 years old, he was hired by Lionel Hampton to play in his band, and he was sitting in the back of his bus holding a trumpet. When Lionel Hampton's wife came on the bus, about to go on tour, she says, "Hey, you, what are you doing here, kid?" And he said, "I'm the new trumpet player." She says, "Off the bus, go get an education and come back here." And he did. Years later, he did. And I worked a little with Lionel Hampton too, and not like he did. I did some arrangements for him once. I had my own experience. Quincy was a kind, gentle, beautiful man who loved people, who loved his music, and his music went from all kinds of things, starting with jazz, trumpet playing, arranging. God, I'm happy to talk about Quincy, by the way.
mm.
Uh, and then into composing films. He did about 35, 40 films. And I don't think most people appreciate how good a film score he was. We recently honored him he unfortunately passed away just before, but he had an honorary Oscar. He
Mm.
was nominated, I think, 7 times or something, didn't win. And his family's up there, his daughters, and they made this speech. We at the Governor's Awards every year we award
Yeah.
honorary Oscars. I'm a governor of the Motion Picture Academy, and it was all very touching. And then he went from there to producing movies and producing television shows, owning record companies, owning television, radio stations. He just spoke a lot of language. I would speak with him in French sometimes. He spoke some Chinese, you know. He was a very well educated, sensitive, nice man, and I'm happy to say a friend.
Mm. Do you know, it was really interesting because the first time I ever heard about Quincy Jones was from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Um, it
I'm
was
sorry, I missed that. I'm sorry.
I was first aware of Quincy Jones from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Oh, of
Um,
course.
his name just popping up, and I went, "Who's Quincy Jones?" And obviously, I got to do my research and did that, and I was like, "Damn, this guy knows what he's doing."
Well, I'll tell you something else about Quincy. It's a personal story now, but you might
Mm,
appreciate it. So he was older than me, and when I was a student in Paris at 18, he was probably 25, and he had a band, and he kept a band together for about a year, struggled to do that, and he would take lessons with a boulanger, not when I was there, but before that. And one day my teacher said to me, "Do I know Quincy Jones?" And he was well known even then. So I said, "I know who he is." She says, "He's such a nice man." She said, "Sometimes he goes, has a band that he plays jazz clubs." Is kind of a foreign word that came out of her mouth. She was into Beethoven and Bach, you know. She said, "But every time he comes back for a lesson, he brings me the most beautiful flowers." So that was my first Quincy Jones relationship. After that, for all the years that she lived, and I'd go to Paris very often, I'd always bring her flowers. And if I couldn't see her, there's a little flower shop downstairs, and I send the flowers upstairs to her. So she'd know I was in Paris.
mm.
That was my first Quincy Jones influence.
There's a lot of music that you've created, produced, and it's funny to when I was doing the research and your name popped up. Obviously, I'm familiar with your work because I watched National Lampoon's European Vacation, 9 to 5, which obviously we'll get down to that one, 9 to 5. With Dolly Parton, see, well, I got a bone to pick with Dolly Parton, right? Because she gets the credit for the song 9 to 5. Where was your Oscar for the original score? Because I'd be like, no,
Oh,
Dolly, Charles Fox,
no,
man.
no, no, no. Don't take anything away from Dolly Parton. She was great. She wrote that song.
Yeah.
You wrote it. I didn't write it. But however, I say on my wall, if you're here, I have a Grammy nomination for the best soundtrack album to Dolly and Charles. The both of us. So I share a nomination with her. Look, Dolly Parton's a great songwriter. And
Oh
actually,
yeah.
the film before 9 to 5 that I did with the same director, same writer, Colin Higgins, who was a brilliant director who died way too early. Foul Play was the first picture I did, and we were friends actually. And I did that film, and that was a great film. And Norman Gimbel and I wrote, I got it. No, we wrote Ready to Take a Chance Again for that film, which for Barry Manilow, which became a big hit. Then when he did 9 to 5, he wanted me to score 9 to 5, and he said, "I'm sorry, I can't ask you to do the song." He said, "Dolly's in the film, and she's already written the song 9 to 5. I hope you would still do the picture." Normally, I didn't do a picture unless I did the songs also. The world is a little different today. Very often, most of the time, the
Mm,
score is the score, and then they get other songwriters. Back then in the 70s and earlier, like Mancini. If you got a Mancini picture, it was his song that went along with it, and it was mostly like that. So if I was offered a picture to do without the song, especially if it was a main title song that we build a theme around, I just wouldn't do the film. But in this case, I had no problem with Donnelly was in the picture. It was called 9 to 5. She wrote a song, and Colin Higgins was my friend. So I had nothing whatsoever to do with the song except we share a nomination for best soundtrack together.
did you ever, when it comes to writing the music, doing composing for film and that, did you ever think, a film like 9 to 5 would have an impact culturally? having a following. Did you ever, with any film that you did or any television show that is as well, did you ever think this one's gonna this one's gonna have a following, or did you ever have any predictions of that?
Well, 9 to 5 was, excuse me, Foul Play was a big hit, and this followed it. Um, yeah, I did. It had Jane Fonda and Dolly Parton and stars, and also had a very important issue. This was prior to the Me Too movement. You
Mm.
know, three women who were abused by a boss, a charming boss, by the way, by Daphne Copeland. Um, but he played the guy who took advantage of women in every way up and down the line. And one night over dinner and some free-flowing pot that the three ladies were sharing, they decide how each of them would kill the boss if they had a chance. And each one had their own way with it. And as I said, it's before the Me Too movement. Well, Jane Fonda's way was she'd be hunting him down she was like a big game hunter with there was a scene like that. He was running away and she was chasing him, shooting. And Dolly had a scene where she lassoed him and rope tied him, hog tied him like a hog.
Mm.
And then oh my goodness, why can't I think of her name? The third one is about Snow White. She pictured herself as Snow White, and with some animated cartoon stuff, but she eventually kicks him, pushes him out the window, and he falls. And a chorus of people come out of their closets and they unchain from their typewriters in a big room with his like musty typewriters and stuff, and they were freed from everything, all because of the three women. So it was quite charming. Yes, I knew it was going to be a big picture and a significant one in that sense too, because in funny ways it almost it was before the Me Too movement and maybe made some mark on it as well. And
Mm.
Jane Fonda, of course, she was one of the producers. I think it was her company, and she's a wonderful person who has always been involved in issues. I did a film when she was married to I forgot his name, who owned CNN,
Oh, Ted Turner.
Turner, and I did a film about the Native Americans that she was involved with, too, that she caused to happen. She's always been anyway. But I go back to Jane Fonda with Barbarella when that was my first experience with her. That was my second film, and I wasn't really even a songwriter before that. If you want to know the truth, I didn't think of myself as a songwriter. I liked scoring in the films and working in the long form composition. And Bob Crew, if you know his name, he was one who discovered the Four Seasons. He wrote all the Four Seasons records along with Bob Gaudio. And he got the opportunity to do a replacement score for Barbarella, directed by Raja Vadim, starring Jane Fonda. And it was a 1960s kind of a spoof on sci-fi pictures. And Bob wasn't a scorer, so he asked me, because I just done a film and we worked together, if I would do the score. And he said, and we need 5 or 6 songs in the film. Would I do the song? I'll do the songs for them. Well, just like that, poof, I became a songwriter. So we wrote a bunch of songs. One of them was called Barbarella, and when the film was finished, Dino Laurentiis, by the way, was the producer. The film, and it's a big Paramount picture. When the film was finished, I had the not unpleasant task of going to France to teach Jane Fonda how to sing the song that we wrote called Barbarella Psychedella. There's a kind of cockle shell about you. Barbarella, Baba. Anyway, she wasn't going to sing it. She was going to hum along as she was taking her clothes off for a long intergalactic voyage in space. So that's the main title. She's getting nude, humming my song, all in slow motion. She's drifting around. I don't know how they did that, but Vadim was her husband. So I had to go to France to teach her that, and I spent the weekend with her and Vadim in their house, in a little farmhouse outside of Paris. And I thought to myself, boy, this filmmaking is pretty cool. This beats just playing the piano.
You know, you mentioned foul play, and obviously I mentioned European Vacation. Two films in common is Chevy Chase. Did you ever get to meet Chevy Chase in person?
I did, yeah. And there's an interesting story about that. So, as you know, European Vacation was all about this family, the Griswolds, winning a free trip to Europe. And they're on the plane now. All four of them have their individual dreams of what they're going to find in Europe. Chevy's dream was his family was going to be on a mountaintop in Switzerland, dressed in lederhosen, like The Sound of Music, and he was going to, with his arm outstretched, like Julie Andrews in the movie, doing
Yeah.
twirling around and
Yeah, Sound of Music, yeah.
be singing the hills are alive with the sound of. Well, they couldn't get the rights to use that song. Um, it was controlled by the Hammerstein estate, and the Hammerstein estate came back and said Richard Rodgers on his deathbed said no parodies of his music, no commercials, no parodies. So they couldn't give us a right. So then Warner Brothers came to me. Well, Amy Heckerling was the director, and National Lampoon, and they said we need you to write something like "The Hills Are Alive with the Sound of Music," but it's not. It just feels like that. I said, all right. So I did a big instrumental thing with a big buildup as though we're going to the Sound of Music, and it was something else. And everyone said, oh, terrific. It sounds great. And I went up to New York, and then I got a call from the producer who said they sent the picture out for previews. No one laughed in that scene. They didn't get it. They didn't get that it was the Sound of Music. He said, we need you to come back to California, which I was coming back anyway. So then I had a meeting with the lawyers of one, as well as the director and producer. And they said, all right, you have to do "The Hills Are Alive with the Sound of Griswold." And I said, I can't do that. I can't. And Chevy will sing that. I said, I can't do that. It's infringement, you know. They said, oh, no, no, we've checked it with musicologists and we're fine. If you use just those few notes and nothing else reminiscent of Sound of Music, they'll get the joke and we won't have a problem. So I said, well, you may think we not have a problem, but you'd have to indemnify me if you want to do that. So they said, all right, fine, we'll indemnify you. And then the director and the producer, we might as well indemnify me also. And then I said, the other thing is I don't want my name on that. I really, I'm doing this in accommodation because I'm asked to do it, but I'm really truly embarrassed to do that. So I don't want my name. So here I am telling you the story, but it's many years later. Anyway, so Chevy came into the studio and the director, Amy Heckerling, said to me, why don't you work with him? I think you'll know what to tell him. So I did. So in fact, I worked with Chevy and his singing that. And that was all. He sang that one line. And actually there's some more lines. I forget what. I think Amy wrote them herself. Anyway, so that was an unusual story that happened to me with that. And by the way, no one was ever sued over that. They sue. So maybe it was I still am unhappy that they had to do that, but then they spent a fortune to fly a whole crew and four people to the mountaintop in Switzerland for a 30-second joke. And there was no joke without that song.
I know, I just can never forget when Chevy Chase is going like that, going, ah, ha, ha, like that. All that
No, it
for
was
30
more than
seconds.
hot. He was singing "The Hills Are Alive" with the sound of Griswold. That was the family name.
Well, you got an Oscar nomination for
Couple of
foul
them.
play.
Yeah.
What was the song again you were nominated for?
Ready to Take a Chance Again, Barry Manilow's song. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the song with Barry Manilow because I was like, which is the song with Barry Manilow? And it was that one. It's like, right, fair enough. So when obviously you've been nominated for two Oscars, and the other one was for. Now this is where I get my notes in. This is where I got to get things right. Here we go. See, look at that. So the best original song. So it's Richard's Window, and that's on the other side of the mountain, which was obviously a couple of years before Foul Play. To be nominated for two Oscars and have the recognition to go to the Oscars, etc. That must have been a thrill in itself, just to be recognized and nominated.
Oh, it's everyone feels that from day one. You know, we're coming up to in a couple months on 97th Oscar, and over the years, it's the thing that we often say. I'm a governor of the Motion Picture Academy. It's my 12th year as a governor, and my final year. But it is the most coveted award in the entertainment industry. Grammys, people can walk up sometimes with 5 or 6 Grammys holding them tightly. But if someone wins an Oscar, that trails with them for, forever. So it's still, and we, in our music branch, which I'm a governor, we try to uphold the statuette as being something very significant. We very carefully go through what's eligible, what's not eligible. A song has to be of a certain length. It has to be clearly heard, clearly audible, clearly intelligible. It has to be written as a request of the director. It can't be just send in a song and hope you get a nomination. I had an interesting story once. I was hired to write a song for Kenny Rogers for a movie called Six Pack. And so I went to Georgia. He played a racing car driver. And I went to meet with Kenny. I didn't know him before that. And we were sitting in this shot in a motel. He had a jet helicopter that he flew down for this meeting. And the two of us were sitting like on beds, opposite, like a double bed, with knees practically touching in a little motel room. And the director was on the other side, sitting on the chair. And the first thing Kenny said to me is, "So, do you think I should sing a song in this picture?" I said, "Well, that's why I'm here, Kenny, to write a song for you." He says, "Yeah, no." He said, "But I want to be known as an actor now, I don't want to just rely on the fact I'm a singer." I said, "Well, it could only be good for the film. I mean, would we get Barbra Streisand to sing a song in your picture?" So he laughed at that. He said, "Well, I don't really want to sing a song that tells the story of the picture. I hate that." I said, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't tell the story. We've always seen the story. But I told him how we developed a character who was a racing car driver who meets these 6 kids, and he sort of adopts them, and they become part of his team. And someone who's traveling around, and his mind and his heart is open to meeting new people. That's what we start. So I said, like Norman Gill and I did for Jim Croce, where I got a name for the Last American Hero. And he thought that was a good idea. So we wrote a song, he loved it. And then he loved it so much that he decided he'd write his own song. So mine didn't get in the film. But the director, and they all thought it was great because they ended up with the song anyway. And he was my point was, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot this point. He said to me, "I have 100 songs that was sent to me in the picture." And he said, "People just took a shot and sent me songs." And I said, "Well, they did, and I'm here to write a song for you." Anyway, there are a lot of times that people think they can have a song in a film, but in order to, I'm getting back to my point, in order to be eligible for an Oscar, you have to write it for the film. You have to at the request of the director and work with the director, so you're an integral part of the film, as any other part of the film would be. You wouldn't just make up costumes for an actor when you're not involved. You have to be involved with the film. Anyways, so getting back to your original question, I think that's why the Oscar is such a coveted thing. We're very careful that it has to be eligible. Once it's eligible, people can vote for it. So
There's one individual.
and yeah,
No, sorry, go on.
forgive me. No,
No,
I was
go
just
on.
going to say so. Of course, I'm happy to have been nominated a couple of times. Yeah.
Oh, no, that's fantastic. I mean, like I said, hopefully one day I'll probably be there and be like, yeah, how the hell did I do this?
Well, we've been going to the Oscars now for many years,
Mm,
and it's always a ball. It's always fun. You're always starstruck. You know, you walk
mm,
by Sophia Loren, you have to be starstruck at that. You know.
yeah. Are you looking for the perfect bracelet for a loved one? Would your man be interested in a personalized keyring from his children? Are you looking for the best priced jewelry, whether it be a necklace, ring, earrings, bangle, or even more? Look no further than Crafted Arts. Crafted Arts is a local business based in Barry within the Vale of Glamorgan, and they have a range of all the perfect items you need. If it's for the perfect gift for an anniversary, or maybe it's for someone's birthday, maybe something for Christmas, or you wanted to give someone that perfect gift that will last a long time, Crafted Arts is the business for you. If you want to know more or see what they have in stock, then you can visit them locally at 29 High Street, Barry, Vale of Glamorgan, CF627EB, or you can go onto their website at www.craftedarts.co.uk. You could even email them at info@craftedarts.co.uk, or maybe just give them a call at 07789 Trust me, it's worth it for the perfect gift. The best thing about Creative Space is that we don't just want to encourage people in being creative in TV, film, or even theatre. We also want you to be creative in a variety of other things as well. So do you want to have experience in making jewelry? Do you want to pick up a hobby but do not know what to take or where to start? Then look no further than the Vale Jewelry Workshops. Vale Jewelry Workshops provides the best experience in teaching you how to make the best sterling silver jewelry. They will help you make a range of silverware including rings, bracelets, and many more pieces. You will learn the basic silversmith skills such as soldering, texturing, shaping, and lots more. Not only do the workshops provide the experience for adults, it also provides the best experience and fun for children as well. So if you want to learn on how to make sterling silver jewelry, and if you're very interested, go onto their website at www.vailejewelryworkshops.co.uk or get in touch with them via email at info@vailejewelryworkshops.co.uk or even phone them at 07789 794248. The one name that always pops into my mind when it comes to music and film, when it comes to scores, when it comes to songs and everything, is the great John Williams. That his I just that that man's music has always I've had a few friends of mine always say to me, you know, if I ever did have him on my show, which I doubt because he's probably a very busy man, it's always like, oh, define childhood with music, and then John Williams was always come up. Did you ever have any interactions with John Williams? Was there ever like a cross in meeting with him at an Oscars party or a music event, anything at all?
Well, of course, I know John. Yeah, John is a lovely guy. He's a brilliant writer. His music really is played in concert halls around the world now, and in the early days of Hollywood, they had symphony, well, say 50 or 60 musicians under contract, sitting around waiting for someone to come in with a score so they can record it. That changed by the time I got to Hollywood, which is around 1970. That there were no longer composers under contract, no longer orchestras under contract. And orchestras got smaller and smaller, budgetary reasons, emulating the pop sounds, you know. When John came out in full force, first of all, John started off as a pianist in the studios, and he was a great studio pianist, great jazz pianist. A lot of people don't know that. And then one thing another led to another. He did a lot of television, as we all do, to get started. And he brought the symphony orchestra back into film, really singularly. Every film he did, he writes for symphony. There have been times he wrote for smaller groups too, but he brought that concept of symphonic music, nothing more so than Star Wars. That was the first one that really made a big. I mean, Star Wars theme was a hit on the top 40 charts with the big symphony. I don't know that it ever happened before or since. John is beloved by everyone in the movie business. There's a wonderful film about him now, called Music of John Williams, and so yeah, I'm happy to say that I do know John. He's a wonderful man, and he's also humble for all of his great accomplishments. And Jerry Goldsmith was another great friend, and Jerry was also one of the masters, one of the greatest composers. And Jerry used to, one time Jerry said to me, he used to do with John Williams, they used to get together. Jerry had two pianos in his house. They used to get together with John and just sight read through a lot of classical music, Mozart and Haydn and Beethoven. He said, John is not doing that. Do you want to do it? Do I want to do that? And I said, sure. So we'd get together pretty often at Jerry Goldsmith's house. He and mine and David Newman, and then other people also would join us. And we'd have four people at two pianos, and we'd read through this classical literature for the fun evening. Our wives were there, and they would cheer us on, just great musical evenings that I had with Jerry Goldsmith. And actually, I have all that music. When Jerry passed away, his wife gave me all of that music. So I'm kind of the guardian of all those things. A lot of sweet memories to look back on.
It's 'cause when I mentioned John Williams, there was a part in the documentary that I watched. Obviously, it's music by John Williams, and there was a part in it where it said Hollywood always, or the film industry itself, always looked down on orchestras, symphonies, like orchestras. I think I'm getting it right. Always look down on it. They just don't want nothing to do with it. And I'm just thinking, why? That's what creates great music. And if you're going to look down on it, then, well, John Williams is going to give you the middle finger. Just say, well, I'm going to do it anyway, and look what I'm doing now.
I can't imagine John giving anyone the middle finger to
No,
begin with.
probably the
But
stick, just going, yeah, see what I'm doing.
But there was a certain kind of snobism, and I've conducted orchestras in many countries, symphony orchestras, playing my music. Although I did some concerts for Jerry Goldsmith, and he was ill, and he asked me to do some concerts, and I did. But there used to be a snobism towards film music. The people who played classical music, actually, it happened in the film. It's happened to John when he took over the Boston Pops, which was essentially the Boston Symphony. The orchestra members themselves resented, this is in the movie about him, the orchestra members themselves resented that he was bringing film music into the concert hall, if you can imagine that. And John actually quit. He quit his position. And then they came to another city, he came back, and he's changed the whole film music world. Now around the world, all the great symphonies all play film music.
Yeah.
And you know what? Not to denigrate in any way classical music. I mean, it's part of my life, but I mean, they both can exist. Dudamel has conducted a recent orchestra of a concert of Transformers music. Marvel music. I mean, Dudamel's one of the greatest conductors in the world. But every orchestra now does it. They'll show films, and along with the film, the live orchestras bring into life the music, or just excerpts. And Morricone, was one of the greatest of all those. Jerry Goldsmith, John Williams, they're all of. They changed the film world around so that film music is very much a part of the symphony hall now. And it's been great. Not only that, then it's given vent to songs. Some of the great songs over the years came from motion pictures, Over the Rainbow, for one, just to name one. So it's a great marriage of the arts, the film is. So by the way, with me, I, aside from my films and my songs, I do a lot of work for the concert home. I've written ballet music. We did a tour of British Isles with the Dance Theater of Harlem doing one of my ballets called The Song for Dead Warriors a number of years ago. And I went there to see it performed a couple of times, and in London. And I've written, concert music. And a few years ago, I went to Poland. I was asked to write a piece using the words of Pope John Paul II. And I wrote an oratorio, and I conducted the Polish National Opera Company in Warsaw at the Opera House. And then the Minister of Culture asked me if I would write a piece. 2010 was the 200th birthday of Chopin. And so the Polish government commissioned me to write a piece honoring the 200th birthday of Chopin, which I conducted in Gdansk, Poland. But I think a lot of my friends and colleagues are doing film music, if they have the background, writing for orchestras. A lot of them just work with synthesizers now, which I'm sure you know. So it's an all-encompassing field doing. And I never quite found one particular area that I would only like to do, because I enjoy it all, songs and so you haven't mentioned this, but you may or not be aware. I started off in music playing Latin music, and I discovered that when I was, when I was quite young, 15 years old. I fell in love with the music from Puerto Rico and Cuba, and to this day I do. And it became infused as part of my life. And when I was very young, I went out and bought all the Latin records I could find, and I became a pianist of Latin music. And I played with some of the great bands like Tito Puente and Ray Barretto. And then I made some records, some of my own records. And I found out 50 years later, I got busy in Hollywood doing all kinds of movies and stuff. I found out 50 years later that on YouTube that there were a lot of people today dancing to my music that I made 50 years ago. And so I decided I wanted to do a new record. And I spoke to a friend. I was going to use some of the great Latin musicians in New York, California, and even Puerto Rico that I know. And then I mentioned that to a friend of mine who was one of the great Cuban composers, Adesio Alejandro. And next thing I knew, I had a call from the Minister of Culture of Cuba asking me if I'd come to Cuba to do concerts. So I did 2 concerts at the Opera House with all the great Cuban musicians, all stars. And I played the piano, all my music, all the songs in Spanish. Orquesta Aragon, one of the great bands for many, many years, played and sang with me, and it was a great thrill. A friend of mine, Danny Gold, who was a great filmmaker, when I told him I'm going to do that, he said, "Oh my God, I want to film that. I just want to film you doing a concert in Cuba." So he brought a crew with him, and they filmed it. We spent 10 days in Cuba, and we did so many things, met so many people, and I conducted the local conservatory orchestra playing some of my music, and young singers who sang for me my songs. It was a very moving experience. People in Cuba are beautiful people, beautiful souls. They love music. It made me feel very welcome. And then Danny started cutting that together as a film, and he realized that if he wanted to tell my story, if he wanted to tell my story, he'd have to go back to my early days, my school, back to Paris, where I studied medieval Angers. So he got the budget for it, and then brought his crew over to Paris. And so that's all part of this film now that was released recently, called Killing Me Softly with the Songs. You may know that. And the DVD just came out, but it can be found on Amazon Prime and Apple TV. And now, just recently, just this last week, the soundtrack album came out of that with all these things. So I'm very pleased with it. On Entrada Records and also on Amazon Music. So I've done my sales pitch.
Right, I gotta get this in. Sales. Don't forget.
My
With
publicist will be happy with
oh
that.
yes, we gotta be because it's you know I'll tell you I'll tell you a quick story, right? Um, now I've done a few plays. I've written. I want to be a playwright, and I want to write for film as well. But I this year alone, I never thought I had a play of mine, even if it was only for a couple of days, go to London. And I'm from the town of Barry, and not far is a village called Cowbridge, where I did my play Talk, which was about mental health. And we did it for 3 days in a small, tiny theatre for like a 70-seated theatre. And a friend of mine, Mark Jones, had a contact who knew someone, said, "How would you feel about taking it to London?" And I was like, "Yeah, okay, you're funny. You're very funny." Even if it was like off West End, it didn't matter. And then I think it was a week later when we finished. He said, "Yeah, yeah, we." No, it wasn't a week later. I'm lying. It was like a few weeks before we did the show. He said, "It's it's on if you want to do it." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then we did it a few months ago, back in September time, and
Yes.
uh, and we did 2 days in a small London theatre called the Bread and Roses Theatre, and and it was fantastic. But the point of it was like I was proud of it. I was like, oh my God, I finally not just on my own, but with help of others. I was like, oh my God, I've put a play on in London. I can't believe I did that. But then there was another part of me. I was like, oh, do you know when I don't know if you get it. I know I spoke to a few people who get it. I felt like, oh, I don't think I've accomplished anything. I feel like I'm getting imposter syndrome. And it took my mate Chris Maxwell to turn around and go, shut up and take pride in it.
You bet. He's right. He's right. If you got to play in the teeniest theater in London, just that you're on the stage, you should
Mm.
be very proud of that. Yeah. It's very difficult to get. I have a new show that I just completed, a musical with Alain Boublil, who you may not know his name, but he wrote Les Miserables,
Oh
which
yes, oh yes.
he just opened it in French, in France for the first time in 30 years, but it's played around the world. And Alain actually lives in London most of the time, but he lives here too, so we work here. Although we've worked at his house in New York and Italy also. Um, and we just finished it. We made a demo of all the songs and the play itself, and we're just starting to get it off the ground. So anytime you get to play on a stage with actors, be thankful for that because it's a tough road. It's
Oh
not
yeah.
an easy, you know. And we're just beginning to get to do the same thing. And we might find ourselves in a small theater in London as well. And I can tell you, I'd be all ears smiling if when we do that.
Mm. It's also interesting for you because to say that because obviously we've talked about a lot of film and film music to me is always magical. Doesn't matter what you listen to, what kind of soundtrack. I mean, if you want to listen to Hans Zimmer, for example, John Williams or Ennio Morricone, um, any film composer, just to listen to the music that brings. Sometimes it's like just going back on John Williams for a moment. My grandfather always said, Jaws wouldn't have been Jaws without John Williams. That
No,
film would have.
no
It just
question.
wouldn't be.
No
And
one
I
would
was
say
like,
that more clearly than Steven Spielberg. He
yeah.
would, he would and has said that very clearly. And actually, in this movie, there's a scene where he said John's at the piano, showing Spielberg, boom, 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 which became synonymous with a shark. And Spielberg at first he didn't get it. He said, "That's it." He said, he trusts John Williams to hear this orchestra, and but there is something special about being a film composer because you give yourself to the film. It's one thing when I write my own music. I'm indebted to my listening to my own ears, my own idea, excuse me, of what it is I need to accomplish. Uh, By the way, that's why I got easily into ballet because it's telling us the ones I've done. I've done three ballets. They're all sort of story ballets, you know. And when you write film music, you give yourself to that film. You don't bring yourself with your preconceived notion. I want to do this. I want to do that. You hear what the film is telling you, what the film is showing you. Sometimes you do the most surprising things. And sometimes a director has a great idea about something and so wonderful, and you write something completely different. And you have to trust yourself. That's the other thing. I don't believe anyone ever gets any place by being the director's pen. You listen to what the director has in mind. He has to listen to what you have in mind. And if there's a good communication, then you go ahead and you do your own thing. I did a film with Arnold Schwarzenegger once called Christmas, Connecticut, that he directed, the only film he's ever directed. And when I met Arnold the first time, I went to his office in Los Angeles, and he was very nice, very charming. And he said, I don't know how to work with a composer. I never worked with a composer before. I said, that's great. Let me worry about the notes. Let's talk about the film. Tell me what you feel about the film. Let me worry about the notes. And it worked out very well. So finally, when he came to my house to hear the music when I finished the score, before I went and recorded with an orchestra, I just played him at the piano and synthesized things. He got it. He got where I was going with the orchestra, and he was very astute. It was a comedy film, and he could see where I was going to pay off a joke, and he would say, "Oh, I like it, but could you play the joke over the top of the stairs rather than the bottom of the stairs?" You know, that's when we can really communicate on a musical level with the film. But it's about the film, and it's about bringing character and context and story. I always see myself as you're a writer. I see myself as a writer of music for films. I write stories with my music. That's how I see it. And I see music being a character in the film. There was an old adage when I started. A lot of people said, I know it's a good score if I like the film and didn't notice the music. As though the music somehow goes along and you haven't noticed. Well, I obviously noticed the music. You do, and a lot of other people do. Music is a character. It's a character in the film. It brings your persona. I mean, if you go to a movie that says John Williams did the music, you know that's you already give it a kind of a sense of what this music, what the film is, and at least it's going to be important enough to attract them, you know. But there are a lot of people that have their own images. We mentioned Hans and Alexander Desplat. Do you know Alexander? The French
What was his
composer?
name? Sorry again.
Alexander Desplat. Alexander is a
Um,
wonderful composer. He's won two Oscars as a composer, and he has a wonderful picture this year. A couple of them. One called Her. No. Oh my goodness, now I've forgotten. But it's about a woman who was a journalist in the war.
oh, that's Civil War. Is it Civil
No,
War?
no, Civil War is about an American Civil War
Oh, right,
uh,
right, okay.
put on by a presidency. No, this is about a woman journalist in World War II, I think. I wish I could remember. Now I mentioned his name in case Alexander hears it. But I wrote to him, and the score is wonderful, just
Mm.
wonderful. And the piano lesson is another film that he did this year. That's a wonderful score. He's a great composer,
Oh
and
yeah, I watched the piano lesson not long ago actually. Uh,
it's a good, very good film.
really good film. I
Anyway,
think I know which
Alexander,
one you're talking about now. Is it one with Kate Winslet? The
yes,
the yeah, I can't remember the name of the film, but I know what you mean.
yeah, then I'm going to blame you for not knowing the film, but
Hey, blame me at
I
all.
can't, I can't remember it either.
Let me ask you about writing lyrics, because um, I've always had this dispute with my fiance. Um, she's always said, because I've written poetry, and I've always wanted to know this: can a poet write lyrics? Can a poet do that?
Stephen Sondheim has the best answer for that. I don't know if I can quote him exactly, but when people say to him, "Oh, your lyrics are like poetry," he would say something like, "No, poetry is something that you have a chance to sit back and absorb and think about. Lyrics you have to understand as you listen to it. So you can say it's like poetry. I think some of Norman Gimbel's lyrics are like poetry. Um, like the pine trees lining the winding road, I got a name. Like the singing bird and the croaking toad, I got a name. Like the whippoorwill and the baby's cry, I got a name. That was Norman Gimbel, our song, I got a name. Sondheim, he makes a really good point. The lyrics are something you have to hear and know what the song is about. You can't take it home and think about it, look for metaphors, and otherwise you're lost. So you could say a lyric is poetry, but normally poets do not make good lyricists. I could say that. Now you could take a poem and set it to music. I mean, I set Pope John Paul's II's words to music, operas, words set stories set to music where everything is sung. But a good lyric is something that tells you a story. It gets you really deep down, and I think that the music should do the same thing. The music should tell the same story that the lyric tells in a musical way. I feel very strongly about that when I write a song that song with that lyric has to tell the same thing. It has to merge. It can't just be a nice tune with lyrics that maybe tell a story. There has to be something deep down. If you're going to bother to write a song, hopefully write a good one that people can take with them. You know, one thing I must have been very fortunate. Some of my songs have, people have taken with them in their own lives. I've had many letters over the years from people and about songs that have meanings, and I've learned to, or by instinct, I go there anyway. But it's very important to try to reach people. You can sing a song about love, okay, fine. But what about it? What about it grabs you? What about brings you can internalize and make it part of your life? Because I've known people who've written to me, told me how some of them, even my songs, they've taken, it's been part of their lives. They think about it, Lena Horne told me she sang "I Got a Name" at a concert, a song I wrote for Jim Croce, and she sang it in her concerts at Broadway, and she brought her own interpretation to it, and it was fantastic. I didn't, excuse me. I didn't know Lena Horne at that time, but I sent her a bouquet of flowers the next day after I heard her sing it. And I have a letter back from her that I can kind of quote because I framed the letter. And she said, "To the composer of my favorite song, you have no idea what it means to me, but every time I sing your song, it brings me closer to my father." So it was very touching to me, and remains that way. People have a way of internalizing songs; they take it with them. I mean, I've had some very sad letters too from people who've been moved in ways I wouldn't have expected. I will tell you that Nelson Mandela said to, I read this in a magazine, to Roberta Flack. He said, when he met Roberta Flack, he said, "Your singing, killing me softly, helped me to survive being in jail." So I don't know if you get any better than that as far as a comment about a song. So I take that very much to heart, and I think it's very important for all songwriters to try to reach people deep down, and both musically and lyrically.
Hmm. There's something special with music, whether it be film, whether it be anything to do with music. It's always gonna inspire someone, regardless. And it's always I always hear that your song saved my life, your song changed my life, your song. Why do you think, in your opinion, why do you think music has that gift to to touch in the heart or soul of people and help them get through something, whether it be a good time or a bad time. Why do you think that?
You know, music is truly something that reaches people in a way that no art form does. You can look at a painting and you can be very moved by it. There's masterpieces. You can get lost in it. I have some paintings on my wall and walls of people I know who have known. I can get lost in those paintings, but certainly you can look at a masterwork. You can, you look at a different period, a different century, a different, and you can get absorbed. And you can get lost in it. With music, it reaches you in a way, in not only in space but in time. So while you're listening to it, you're being absorbed. You're absorbing what the composer and the artist performing it meant to say and meant to do. And it's a very unique part of the art world. Music is, and in all different combinations. It could be a solo cello or a symphony orchestra with chorus, or a rock and roll band. You know, there's a certain magic to that. I don't know that anyone can really define that very well. I don't know if I have, but I think that music has a way of digging down into your heart, into your inner being, and you take melodies with you. You take orchestration with you. You hear it, you feel it, it moves you. And of course, it can be true of any art form, dance, whatever, theater, movie. But there's something about pure music that comes into your soul that you take with you. And I wish I could have better words to explain it, but because it's kind of mystical also. But it sure does. We know that. We know people who they hear something and it just reminds them of the past. Think of the future. It brings that person into a singular position of feeling good, whole, filled with memories, which could be bad memories.
Mm.
But it's certainly a very unique art form, with or without lyrics.
Oh
With
yeah.
or without,
I mean, look, you take John Williams again, for example, right? I mean, I can only think of a handful of individuals like John Williams that has an orchestra and songs where you can go, you can hum to the themes of Jaws or Indiana Jones or Star Wars. You could be walking down the street, you could be whistling to the Indiana Jones music. You know, anyone can sing a lyric or so with a pop song, a rock song, or whatever. But when it comes to film music, there's only like so many individuals that can just get someone to go like that, just walking down the road. And I think that's just beautiful as well.
it is, yeah. John is he's a great songwriter too, by the way. But
Mm,
look, I've had the good fortune of I've done a lot of television music, as you know. I found
yeah.
and I hear people sing my television themes all over the
Sunday,
world.
Monday, happy days. Wednesday,
Oh,
Thursday, happy days.
someone just sent me a tape yesterday of a wonderful version of The Love Boat that they played in theaters before starting the new movie Wicked. I don't know why, but they sent me a tape of it. I get that from people when they travel. They say, I just heard your song in China and in Taiwan and all over the world. Sometimes it's not even my song. I say, no, I didn't write that one. But it's nice to know that those things are out there. And now, by the way, so when I've done television, I've done a lot of television.
Mm,
And I've had the good fortune of having a good number of hit records with it. But I think that's part of my job. It's
yeah,
not just sort of the theme that goes. So 1 minute, usually one. Now they don't give you that. You get 10 to 15 seconds. And when I was doing television things, uh, the producer asked me of Love Boat, how much time do you need? I said, probably a minute and a half. He said, okay. You would never hear that today. But it usually be around a minute or so. And so within that music minute, you had to identify what the show is about.
mm,
If it's happy days and it's up and it's 50s and it's friendly and it's happy days and you have to establish that. Um, Laverne and Shirley were these two girls who worked in the factory, dreaming and hoping that they would get out and their dreams would come true. So we wrote "Make Our Dreams Come True." Wonder Woman, which I get a lot of performance. A lot of people call me about, and have been used many ways. It just identifies the character, but you want in 1 minute, you want to bring people into the world of Wonder Woman, the excitement, or whatever the show is, and you want to do something that I always think of that if they're in the other room raiding the refrigerator and they hear the music and say, "Oh, I love that show," and they come running back, a real identity. And at the same time, I always hoped it would be easy to sing along with and maybe have a hit record at the same time. I felt all that was part of my job. And so it's been very nice and a number of those things to hear them still going on really around the world.
Hey, but thank you for giving us Happy Days though as well. I mean, every time that song comes on, no word of a lie, I always dance to it. It does bring joy.
So in
And I
the
have
film, in the documentary film, I met with Bare Naked Ladies. I don't know if you know that group. Wonderful group.
my
And
my my fiance would probably know.
anyway, they were doing a big concert at the big stadium here. I've forgotten the name. And we met and we talked. And then they went ahead and they played it that night. And had 5,000 people singing along. And he talked about the song first as though he had written it himself. And he has, I forget his name, but they have a big fan base. And the video of 5,000 people singing along my song, having a joyous time, dancing and hugging each other. And I just, that made me feel great. That's pretty cool. I did that about 50 years ago. And all these people are dancing and jumping up and down to that song. And then at the end, he said, all right, I didn't write that. I did, mentioned my name and said here, and everyone, responded. So it's a wonderful feeling. You never get over that. If people sing along a song you wrote 50 years ago, and having a great time, not just singing it, but singing and having a great time. When I perform, I always, if I'm doing my song, sometimes I'll turn to the audience, ask them to help me out and sing along with me. And invariably they all do, and it's very nice. I can perform for a lot of people. To hear 1,000 people singing my song at the same time is a really nice feeling.
Last question for you, Charles, and I did mention it earlier at the very beginning of this podcast, and I'm gonna ask it again. How do you look back on your career?
I'll be honest with you. I'm too busy looking forward in my career to look backwards. I am truly. I'm not just saying that. I have this new show, as I said, with Lambeauville. We're just getting that going. I have all kinds of pieces I promised to people, commissions, new people I want to write songs with. I'm enjoying very much doing more performing. I did a concert in New York recently. I did one in Los Angeles. Last week, I was supposed to be in Florence, Italy, doing just at the piano, a beautiful concert hall. I wasn't able to go. I was supposed to do a concert in Cuba next month, and I had to unfortunately cancel, but they're going to show my film. I'm just too filled with what I have yet to do, I have an opera that I started writing based on the Grapes of Wrath, and I got quite a bit into it, and I need to get along with that and finish that. So I'd like to think about the past, but I'm too busy thinking about the future.
Thank you guys for tuning in to the Creative Space Podcast channel. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you can be notified for more content in the future. Thank you once again.